It's all about the first impression. I have been waiting to get around to this one for ages, and finally, when given the option, the folks over at the Council of Geeks Patreon voted to do it, so let's do it. Let's rank the opening titles of Doctor Who. All of them. Classic, right up through the most recent one that premiered with Series 11 of the modern era. So, we've actually got quite a few of these things to get through. More than you would think, because some Doctors had more than one version of the opening credits. So we've actually got 19 of these to get through. Let's not waste any more time, starting at the bottom. The Seventh Doctor's opening titles, debuting with Time and the Rani in 1987. Now, I'll start out by saying there's actually no version of the opening titles that has nothing to like. There are still some things to like even here. Some of the aspects of the arrangement for the opening theme, that is pretty good. I like how the timing of the asteroids that fly away from the viewer sort of really hit the time with doo-doo-doo in the opening theme. That's cool. But there's a couple of massive problems with this one, starting with the fact that it is too long, and it lingers on the bit that in my mind only belongs in the closing credits. The do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and it just has this CGI TARDIS spinning. It's very showy offy of the CGI graphics that don't look great, and granted, I wasn't watching it at the time, but I don't think even for the time looked that good. They looked kind of sterile, like a little novel, but that's about it. Novelty's about all it has going on for it. So between the CGI that isn't worth what they're milking it for, and the theme just going on for too long with the bit of it that I don't think has any business being in the opening end of the title of Doctor Who, it should all be the mysterious woo element, not the more heroic middle bridge bit. That shouldn't be in there. And on top of that, the Doctor's face. We'll be coming back to the Doctor's face thing and my feelings on that in general. But first of all, the kind of silvery thing they've got, look, I don't know if this is actually the case, but it looks like they actually painted Sylvester McCoy silver. It looks like he's got like pancake makeup on, and then he winks, and like, no, it's like a creepy, like, somebody call the police, I need an adult kind of wink. And then, of course, it caps off with the worst logo that Doctor Who has had. At some point, I'm sure I'll rank the logos separately, but, like, this thing's ugly. Next up, the Fourth Doctor, with the second version of the Fourth Doctor's opening credits. So this was the one that swapped out the sort of blue psychedelic sort of time tunnel look for the Starfield. And there's a couple of things about this that don't work for me very well at all. Let's start out with the fact that the face, the look, the face that they chose to use for putting the Doctor's image up there, it looks awful. What did they have to work with that they looked in that and said, yeah, that's the image to use? What? Oh God, it's hideous. And then it zooms at the camera. Oh man, look, we'll be coming up to this later. But prior to this, when the Doctor's face showed up, it came away from the viewer. Having it zoom at us, I don't like that in general. I don't like it here. I don't like it any of the other times that we used. And it actually kind of became the standard after this one, which I hate. But God, just that choice. That face. No, wrong face. Okay, 16 and 15 are going to be the Sixth Doctor's opening credits. At the lower ranking is going to be the one from the Trial of the Time Lord, and then his original one, starting with the Twin Dilemma, goes above that. They're basically identical. They're just, it's a little too rainbowy in terms of like a sort of a prism effect. It's decent up to a point, but like it's too colorful, much like the Sixth Doctor's outfit in general. And again, the face thing, which I'm not loving in general. The only reason that one is ranked above the other is that it is a slightly different version of the actual theme. And I think the one that they updated for Trial of a Time Lord is a little bit softer. It doesn't hit as hard. I just don't like it as much. There's kind of a nice, almost like sort of a war drum kind of feel to how hard the version from his first credits hits, and I miss it when it's gone. But that's the only difference. Next up, number 14. Third Doctor. His original credits, debuting with Spearhead from Space. And honestly, the show is just too enamored with the fact that it is in color, and it's garish and gaudy and ugly, and I don't like it. Much like how the Seventh Doctor's opening credits is too enamored with the fact that they can do CGI, that they just do it. This is too enamored with color, and they just do it. It's just bathed in these, just, ugh. The colors are just gross. It's not even like the rainbow thing of the Sixth Doctor before. It's just, ugh. And the only reason this is above the others is because the image for the face works a little bit better for me here. Number 12, the second set of credits for the 11th Doctor. So our first one from the modern era. This debuted with The Snowmen. And this, it's not bad. We're kind of out of the ones that I have major problems with, but I am still going to be nitpicking a bit here. There's a few things that I don't love about this. I don't like sort of the camera whip panning like through the stars. There's also a little bit too much like sound effects, a little bit too many like whoosh pow like sound effects as things whiz by and whatnot. That doesn't really add anything. They brought the face back after not having had the Doctor's face in the modern era. It's way subtler than it was in classic era. I'll give it that, and that's preferable. I still don't really like it being there. And overall, it's just kind of okay. Next up, number 12. Fittingly enough, the opening credits for The 12th Doctor. And I wish I liked these better. I really do. The gears I'm kind of okay with, and like the version of the theme, it fits the more mechanical look of it. You know, it feels like it has like that sort of mechanical kind of going with it. So like it matches, but I don't really love it all that much just as a version of the composition. And there's something about when it spirals into the face of the clock and like the Roman numerals, there's something I don't like about that. And it's hard for me to quantify and put my finger on it, but I guess in the same way that I don't like it when the Time Lords are shown to be just too close to human in their culture and their behavior, that like having the Roman numerals just throws me off. Maybe it would have worked better for me if it was like some weird Gallifreyan numbers or something, but something about that, it just doesn't quite do it. It's pretty original, though, and I'll give it that. That's why it's a little bit higher than it might have otherwise been. It's a pretty unique piece, but I kind of wish we gotten a crack at another one for Capaldi other than this one. Next up, number 11, The Eighth Doctor. The credits used for the opening title for the Doctor Who TV movie of 1996. I really only have one major issue with this, but for me, at least, it is a major issue. And I mentioned this back with the Seventh Doctors. Remember how what I consider to be the more heroic part of the Doctor Who main theme? You know how I said that shouldn't be in the front end? You should save that for the closing credits. The front end should be the more mysterious stuff. Well, I already mentioned how it bugged me with the Seventh Doctor's credits that was in there at all. The Eighth Doctor's credits, it opens with that. Doesn't even open with the doo-doo-doo. How do you not open with that? So this whole thing's tainted by original sin, but truth be told, once we're past that and into the rest of it, visually it's a little bland, not a ton going on. It's just kind of a sense of the time vortex, but I actually really like the composition on this thing after that original misstep. Like, I like it a lot. If they just junked that from their opening, this would have been significantly higher because I really like the composition and visually it doesn't do anything wrong and the logo's even pretty decent. Number 10, the Fifth Doctor's opening credits, debuting with Castrovalva in 1982. So this one, again, we continue with the Starfield thing that, like I said, was already kicked off with the Fourth Doctor previously. The face chosen, not nearly as off-putting as that one from the Fourth Doctor was, but I still don't really care for the whole Starfield, the stars come together and then it's his face. And again, I really do not like the face coming at the viewer. I really, really don't like that. Other than that, though, it's fine. It's a pretty good version of the theme, and like going for the Starfield in general, sort of taking it out of the confines of the vortex, it wasn't an awful idea, and if it wasn't for the face zooming in, it'd probably be a bit higher than this, but like, man, I really hate that. Number 9, also oddly fitting, the Ninth Doctor's credits, starting with Rose in 2005. Now, you're gonna get kind of a pretty tight confine of a lot of the Davies era opening credits, because there wasn't a huge difference between them, but there are little tiny subtle differences between them that causes some to be ranked above others. This one is the lowest ranking of the Davies era opening credits because I feel it's the roughest. The specific version of the logo is the one I like the least. They tweaked it a little bit later on, and there's other little touches that later versions did that I like over this. Number 8, the 11th Doctor's first opening credits, starting with the 11th Hour in 2010. I like the urgency of the composition on the opening theme in this one. I do like that quite a bit. And the logo is pretty decent, and there's nothing wrong with the visualization of the time vortex being more like almost like a circle of clouds, and there's lightning, and then there's a burst of fire, and it's kind of fiery around there. It's okay, but again, it's too identifiable. I like the sense of just this funnel of energy or time, or I don't even know, and like, this is a funnel of clouds. I know what clouds are. I know what lightning is. It's a little bit too pedestrian, the elements it chooses to give us, but it's still a pretty good version of the composition, and it does work. It's just my preference isn't towards those sorts of elements being in. I want something a little weirder than that. Number 7, the first version of the 10th Doctor's opening credits, starting with the Christmas Invasion, and that was, 2006. So this one gets above the Eccleston version, and, I had another one in between there. But the reason this one's higher is because they did some nice little things with the timing that honestly make a big difference for me. Which is, you had the name, it was, before it was Eccleston, then it was, the name sort of coming in, spinning, and then zooming at the camera. It just kind of did that in the Eccleston one. In the first David Tennant one, and then continuing through his entire run, they timed it with the theme a little bit more. So it was going... So they're timing both the turn of the name and then the zoom at you with what the theme is doing, which is just a much better way to do it. And number 6, the 10th Doctor's second iteration. It gets slightly above the first because they redesigned the logo, and I like this version of the logo better, otherwise all the same strengths. Next up, number 6, the 4th Doctor's original credits, starting with Robot in 1974. Now, this one has, I've always liked the sort of the effect of that tunnel looking that initially sort of takes the shape of the Doctor's head, and then it takes the square shape for the logo, which was a really good logo. The only thing about this that I don't care for is it does sort of start out with just this sort of generic, more tunnely looking thing, rather than leading directly in with the Doctor and the more identifiable and like fleshed out and just more coherent visual bits. That little opening bit brings it down slightly. All right, top 5. Number 5, the original opening credits from 1963 with An Unearthly Child. Weird electronic music, weird visuals. You don't entirely know what's going on. It really does set the tone for this show so perfectly. And the only reason I don't have this higher is I think the tail end of it just drags. It kind of ends, but it just keeps letting the visuals for I don't know, 5 seconds longer than it needs to. And when I'm getting to this high on the list, it is coming down to these little tiny differences. But man, that first episode, man, on every level. Mwah. Next up, the third iteration of the 10th Doctor's opening title credits. Why is this one higher than the others? Because of the composition. This has got the big orchestral version. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the electronic versions. I like the sort of weirdness of the more electronic sound that we've had at other points, but something about the big orchestra, I can hear the violins do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do. I really love this version of the theme. So that on top of the previous refinements that I already talked about for these credits, that this is the best of the Davies era easily. I really do like this. Number 3, The Second Doctor's opening title, starting in 1966. First of all, you've got that same perfectly tuned, weird electronic sound that actually stuck around for a while. They would later redo the themes. You really didn't start redoing them until you got, at least not heavily, until you got to the 4th Doctor. So it stuck with it for a while. And it's got the weird thing going on. And the face. I love the way the face fades in from the visual noise. It's not a complicated effect, but it looks really good. And I feel like it's the perfect expression for the Second Doctor because it's slightly off-putting, but kind of endearing. It's the absolute opposite of that Tom Baker one from his second version of his opening titles, where that was the worst shot they could have picked. This is the best shot they could have picked. So good. Number 2. The 13th Doctor's opening credits. I love these. They are so weird. It's visually so strange, and it's this sort of almost organic, feels biological, but it is still being reminiscent of the weird sort of electronic visuals and the weird ambient look to it, while having this weird otherworld, almost kind of gooey thing going on at times. And the orchestration for this version of the opening theme, really intense. I love it. This feels so sci-fi. This feels like the heady kind of sci-fi that I want Doctor Who to do more of. And I'm not going to say that Series 11 lived up to the promise of these opening titles, but God, I like this so much. Doesn't quite take the number 1 spot for me, though. It was close. It came dang close. But ultimately, there's one that just puts the biggest smile on my face, and I have no issue with, I think is just perfect. The second iteration of the 3rd Doctor's opening credits. This started with the Time War in 1973. This was the first iteration of sort of the blue time tunnel looking thing. Because up to that, it had just kind of been, weird, wibbly, just weirdness. Now we got something a little bit different. And again, we have the Doctor, but he's pulling away from us. And the way it shapes around him, and then the logo comes in. It's just perfect. It is a perfect iteration of the show, of this version of the character. It is just weird enough And maybe that's why I put it above 13th Doctor's opening credits. Because maybe as much as I love them, maybe those are slightly too weird. This is the perfect level of weird. And everything is pitched just right. And there are all these elements that I've nitpicked elsewhere, but they're just applied perfect for these opening credits. And that's my ranking for the opening credits of Doctor Who. How would you rank them? What are your thoughts on how I've ranked them? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Bunch of stuff to do. I mentioned the Patreon because my patrons helped vote and select this topic as the Doctor Who list for this month. So you can support me on the Patreon, help me keep the lights on, and help me cover my bills, and also get to vote in things like that. Plus, there's other links down there besides links to my socials, such as Instagram. See what the heck else I get up to if you feel like checking that out. Bunch of things. Subscribe, like, or don't. You don't have to. I'm not going to tell you what to do, because at the end of the day, you're the council. I'm just running the meetings, and until next time, this council is adjourned.